On ESPN.com right now, what's it like replacing Nick Saban inside Kalen DeBoer's first game week? And who better to talk to than Chris Lowe? Chris, always great to see you. Hope you enjoyed the weekend in Tuscaloosa.
I did, Paul. It's great to be with you as always.
Well, take us through what you saw through your own eyes. You've been there a few times. You've watched many, if not all, of Nick Saban's most important moments. You broke the story about him retiring. Now there's a new guy in town.
Not as much swearing on the practice field, Paul. I can promise you that. The thing I think my main takeaway, honestly, is that this guy is very secure in his own skin. I'm talking about Kalen DeBoer. He's confident. He's humble. He's one of those guys that is a good listener and talking to guys like Jalen Milroe and Tyler Booker. They mentioned that multiple times, that he listens, he talks to them, he gets their sense on things. He is a guy that lets his coaches coach. And I talked to, guys who'd been there with Saban, like a Robert Gillespie, guys that had come with Kalen, Courtney Morgan, some of those guys, Ron McKeefery. He was very strategic in the way he put that staff together. And I think you look across the board, you see that. People from his past, people that were there previously, just subtle things like keeping people around like a Josh Chapman, a Bob Welton, a Jeff Allen, an Ellis Ponder, guys that had meant so much to that program in the past. He did that, and yet he wanted to bring in his own people, his own group of people, and I think it's been a good mix. Everybody there swimming in the same direction, Paul. But as we know, in this league, and certainly Kalen knows this, we talked about it, it gets down to basically one thing, and that's winning the games that count.
Talking to Chris Lowe about Kalen DeBoer, you mentioned the swearing, and Chris, you've been on a million practice fields. Is there anyone in a position like this at a big school? I'm not talking maybe at a Christian school that you could correlate the Kalen DeBoer's sideline demeanor to?
I'm trying to go through my head here, Paul. You're talking 38 years of doing. No, I mean, Rick Barnes at Tennessee would probably be the closest. This version of Rick Barnes, so maybe back when he was at Texas, but I did hear a couple BSs, and I was joking with Robert Gillespie
already.
So I did hear a couple BSs. Funny, his wife Nicole, and it was great getting to catch up with his two daughters, Avery and Alexis and Nicole, on Wednesday night at the radio show, and I was kidding her about it. I said, "Have you ever seen the guy really get angry?" And she says, 2 years, I think 2 times in all the years we've been together, I've heard him raise his voice in anger. She said, "I do all the swearing for the family."
and I mean, we're going to stop this eventually comparing, but you've been to the Saban show a million times. You saw this. I mean, how would, just starting there, how is it different?
I think a real sense of starting over and excitement that, I mean, listen, the Alabama fans knew Nick wasn't going to coach forever. They hoped he would, but they knew he wasn't. And I think bringing in a guy like DeBoer, who is so markedly different from Nick in the way he goes about his business and his demeanor, and yet similar in a lot of ways too, Paul. I don't want to get ahead of our skis on that. This guy is organized. He's detailed. He doesn't waste 1 second of the day. He knows his stuff. He's sharp. He's got, Nick had a wit about him that not everybody knew about. He didn't show it just to everybody. Kalen DeBoer is the same way. And I think the fans the novelty of it all, I think, was what stood out to me about his first radio show. It was on Wednesday instead of Thursday. He's bringing a player. And next time he would bring a media guest on. Kalen wants to bring a player, a different player every week. So I'll highlight that player. It was Jalen Milroe on Wednesday. But a packed house and a lot of people, I think, eager to see where they go from here under a guy who's, I don't know. When's the last time? I was talking to Greg Byrne, Alabama's AD, about this. When's the last time in college football or college sports that someone of Nick's ilk that has won as much as he had, that we've seen this kind of transition? Maybe Krzyzewski at Duke, but that was a promotion. That was somebody from inside the program. But bringing somebody else from the West Coast, somebody that really people in Alabama, people in the SEC didn't know a lot about, and stepping in for a guy like Saban, in my career, which spans almost 40 years, I don't know that I remember something quite like this.
Well, Chris, I think the only two comparables in recent memory are both elevations, though. Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, and Lincoln with Bob Stoops. And both those guys are gigantic figures, but they weren't Nick Saban.
No, and again, as you point out, those guys were on their staff. They
Right.
were part of the quote unquote family. Kalen is not part of this family. And let's remember, giving Greg Byrne his props, he is the guy that hired Nate Oates. Oates has come in and who was a math teacher and takes Alabama to the Final Four. Well, here's a guy, Kalen DeBoer, who was teaching history and coaching high school football there in Sioux Falls before he got into college coaching not too long ago. And, had been at places like Southern Illinois, Eastern Michigan. And I think Kalen, in talking to him, will fall back on his journey and what's sure to be some tough times. You're going to lose some games. You're going to be at some point, can the guy do this? Can he do that? Well, Nick didn't do that. He didn't do it this way. I think, Paul, he will fall back on that journey. He is the antithesis of being bored on third base in this profession. 15 years ago, he was at Sioux Falls. 10 years ago at Eastern Michigan. 5 years ago, the OC in Indiana. Indiana, not a hotbed for football. And now here he is at one of the two blue bloods, if not the blue blood in all of college football, going in behind a guy who won championship after championship.
And Chris, we see Saban on Saturday morning in Texas, and there he is at the game. And I know you're probably not surprised because you know this guy better than we do. But take us through that part of it. And he said he wanted to be part of the program. He's backing those words up.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Nick a little bit, and this is the plan for him. When he can make Bama games this year that works around his game day schedule, he's going to be there. Of course, next week they're going to name the field in his honor. The thing he told me, and he has kept a low profile, and Kalen told me too that he couldn't respect Nick more than the way he's handled it. I think he's been over there twice this preseason, the complex. Both times, I'm sure you'll have a hard time believing this, to get some treatment on his back because of maybe he jerked his back out of whack playing golf from Jeff Allen. And even those two times he comes in the back way because he doesn't want to be in the way or around and people seeing him. But he told me, Nick did, he said, listen, he said, the thing I've been most impressed with about Kalen DeBoer is he's done it his way. He hasn't tried to be anything but who he is. He's done it exactly the way he's done. He's always been successful doing it that way. So why change? He said, when Nick came in, think about this, and you were in that state. Nick comes in 2007. In a lot of ways, they were still trying to get past the malaise from the Bear Bryant era. And Nick came in, again, in a different type of approach. He had the stroke. He did exactly what he wanted to do, the way he wanted to do it. He set it up the way he wanted to do it. And, here we are 6 national championships later, and his successor steps in. So that's the thing I think Nick is most appreciative about of what he's seen from Kalen DeBoer is he's been exactly who he is to this point.
A great piece. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, Chris Lowe, always enjoy talking to Chris. Such a great reporter and writer. Chris, be well. We'll see you soon.
Okay, Paul. Great to see you.
Thank you very much. Chris Lowe joining us from ESPN.